Am I sounding?
Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Beyond the South Stand ahead of our game with Sheffield Wednesday on Tuesday night. I've got that right, no Morgan, it's the 11th, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Good. Day before my birthday, no less.
Is it?
Yeah.
Kept that one quiet.
Well, yeah, well, there we go.
Why is that, Jez?
Well, because I'm 39 and it doesn't matter anymore, does it? So,
He's clinging in by his fingernails.
yeah, kicking and screaming into my 40s, yeah. So I've got one more year, thankfully, in my 30s. I think that's the quote from The Office, isn't it? Both in our 30s.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'm sure you are. We're recording this ahead of our game tomorrow night against Oxford. So it was a great performance, wasn't it?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm sort of preempting the result.
I can't answer that. I'm not in a DeLorean.
Anyway, our Sheffield Wednesday fan this week is Luke Gleadall. Hi, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. How are you both doing today?
Yeah, really well.
Very
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to us two nincompoops.
No worries at all.
If you'd just like to introduce yourself, where you're from, what you do for a living, and how long you supported Sheffield Wednesday for.
Oh, yeah. I'll try and give you the too long didn't read version. Trying to blabber on too much here. My name's Luke Gleadall. I am one of the co-hosts of a very occasional these days Sheffield Wednesday podcast, Different Gravy. Been a fan of Wednesday ever since I was a little boy. Like many people, I did grow up in Sheffield, but, very much foisted upon me, my fandom, by my dad.
Yeah.
Bless him. And I lived in Sheffield most of my life up until about 2012 when I moved to Canada. So I'm calling you from the sunny climes of Calgary, Alberta today.
Oh,
and what do I do for work? I design training. I'm an instructional designer. If you've ever come across any of those people,
Yep.
That's those tedious courses. Yeah, I'm building those and trying to make those less tedious as possible.
How to pick up a cardboard box, etc.
Yeah. I'll send you over my cardboard portfolio later, and you can take a look.
Bend your knees, top tip.
Bend your knees, straighten your back. Yeah. Excellent. I've had to do a few of those in my time, I'll tell you. And they don't get any more entertaining, shall we say? I'm sure yours are brilliant, Luke. As you mentioned, you sort of follow the team from afar. How is that for you? Are you able to keep in touch with a lot of the games and stuff, or?
Yeah, it's been good for the past kind of 6-7 years. I mean, they brought in kind of iFollow probably around that point. I remember the first year having no commentary. So just having this weird, and also there was a weird delay as well.
Yeah.
So I just had this very surreal kind of moment of having the crowd noise slightly delayed. But luckily, it's got a lot better since then. I am increasingly annoyed, like I guess a lot of you and a lot of, English football fans, the increasing Sky Sportsification and TV times. I am very against the kind of midday kickoff because that is a 5:30 a.m. time here.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of games I'm getting out of bed for at that hour, I'll be honest.
Yeah, we've had quite a few 12:30 kickoffs this season for Sky, I think. And it makes it harder to kind of you're literally on a day off effectively for a lot of fans. You're jumping out of bed, getting up, and you have to go straight to the game, rather than sort of like prep yourself, enjoy yourself, meet up with your friends. It all sort of take a little bit of time, and then you go to the game at 3 p.m. So I mean, it's obviously harder for you having to get up at 5:30 to watch Sheffield Wednesday.
But even like that away fan kind of experience, right? And I mean, especially based kind of, I guess, from my experience, I've only been to Norwich once, but like being in East Anglia, sometimes it's a bit of a hassle to get to some of these places. So it's bad overall,
Yeah, I mean, it must be. I mean, I can only really liken it to when we. You guys must remember the Japan Korea World Cup 2004. I think,
Yeah.
and the games then were being broadcast at. I think I remember getting up about 7:30 in the morning once to watch a game. So I can sort of appreciate, even though it was only one tournament, kind of appreciate what you do sort of every game really, I suppose. And as you say, particularly those sort of 12:30 kickoffs must be challenging.
Yeah, some I catch later, or some I'll be honest. It's been a struggle this year, and also maybe getting onto the football as well. If we can catch up onto how it's been from a Wednesday fan perspective this season.
I mean, to be fair, I mean I guess that segues quite nicely into question one, Jez.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are sitting quite pretty at the moment, mid table, but near enough to the playoffs that it might be interesting. So I mean, after a tough start, how confident are you about a strong finish, and could a late playoff push be on the cards?
It's an interesting question. I'm curious, and I can like go and kind of pop this back to yourselves, just because I'm curious. Like I know a little bit about Norwich. I thought it was funny you saying you're of a certain age. I'm 41, so I remember kind of like those halcyon days of the 90s, and I kind of think of Wednesdays kind of being high up there in the Prem, the kind of European run, and then I think of like Norwich City with like Jeremy Goss,
Yeah.
Efan Ikoku, that kind of UEFA Cup run of that era as well. So different times, definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of curious thinking about like we can get onto this, and I want to hear your view about how do you feel about your kind of ownership? Because looking from a Wednesday perspective, I don't know how much you know. We've got this Thai chairman who's been in charge for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And after that kind of period, the kind of hallmarks and the things that repeat are looking very clear. Like we're going into a January transfer window. We need that little bit of extra quality to kind of push us over the line.
Yeah.
Expectation, media hype kind of comes up from the fans and the media. Clearly, the man doesn't have what it takes to kind of support us. So it's a weird thing of trying not to get too close to that expectation, but getting caught up, like how close it is. Like, I think the interesting thing this season from a Wednesday perspective is, there've been so many occasions where I chatted with, my good friend Rich, who I do the podcast with, and said, it's surprising how close, like a few extra goals either scored or like not let in would make quite a sizable dent in this table. And even though it is a strong competitive division, a lot of interesting things, it's still a great year for the championship, I still believe. But there's still a lot of moments where you think, if we hadn't had this clanger, if we had a slightly better defensive kind of setup, if we'd gone and get the player that we identified, like we all know that we needed, it could have been so much different. So being so close to the top six has just made me think, it should be easy to go get a little bit of quality. A big thing we'll get onto as well is just defensively, Wednesday are very weak. So under Danny Roll, we're kind of quite gung ho and we kind of go for it, but there's a lot to be said for scoring a few goals and then keeping a lot of clean sheets where you can look at the top of the table at people like Burnley and as much as I hate to say it, Sheffield United.
I'm looking forward to talking to you about Sheffield United later. But I think, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but like be careful what you wish for in a way, because let's face it, you're in League. How long were you in League One for?
Oh, it felt like a while. I mean, so when I emigrated here in 2012, I basically had a season ticket for 3 years previous. And then that I basically joined with a previous chairman's who was a local guy called Lee Stratford, wanting everyone to kind of like root together and support the team. We got relegated that year. That was the year where we went up against Palace on the BBC, and it was like the must not lose game or must win for Wednesday. And they went down. The next season after that was kind of Gary Megson in League One, who, again, a Norwich connection,
Yeah.
which is interesting there. And then that was kind of very middling, and then we had a promotion season. So we went up to the Championship. It's kind of felt like Wednesday and kind of the last 20 years have been very much a yo-yo team between the second and third tier of English football.
Right. Because, I mean, I always think of Sheffield Wednesday as, like, I remember the 1993-1994 Premier League, the first Merlin sticker book. I'm sure you both do as well. I completed that first one, by the way.
Yeah, likewise.
I didn't, I think. I think there was one year, I think I needed one person, and I can't remember who it was, and I sent in, and they sent me another Neville Southall instead.
What a player to receive. But for me, I've always thought of Sheffield Wednesday as a big club, a massive club. And so of recent years when, you went down to League One, did you have Darren Moore as,
We did have Darren Moore, yes.
Yeah. And, I was like, well, that seems odd that Sheffield Wednesday have gone down to League One.
Stereotypical sleeping giant, aren't they? Let's be honest. I think I'm the same as you, Morgan. I don't think a lot of people go, well, there's teams that should be in the Premier League by right. And, we look at the likes of Leeds United who think that. But actually, I think Sheffield Wednesday could be one of those teams where you look at the size of the stadium, you look at the size of the support, or at least the potential support. And they could be one of those teams, or at least should be one of those teams that should be up there, not like a Bournemouth or a Palace, no disrespect. But I'd feel much more comfortable seeing, and I'd be delighted to see Sheffield Wednesday up there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's not because you're on this podcast, Luke. I don't think. I don't have a great deal of fondness for Sheffield United, but Sheffield Wednesday, I've always felt that, it's like, I'm really kind of surprised that you are where you are, as it were. So I guess what I'm saying is, like you might say, oh well, we're sort of middling and we're sort of scraping, but it's better than being where Luton are right now, say.
Yeah, and I think, Luke, you alluded early on to our ownership, and we've not known, and I'm sure Morgan will agree with this, we've not really known any different other than Delia Smith. Obviously, the early days of Robert Chase, or the latter days of Robert Chase, I should say. But we've never really known any different to Delia. She was and she won't mind me saying this, a steady hand. She never really she put money into the club, and at times she put money into the club when we really needed it. Never took a penny out, and actually lost money when she sold to our new owner, who is an American chap, Mark Atanasio. He owns the Milwaukee Brewers, which are a baseball team. Yeah. So that's very early days. It only got announced this week that he'd taken majority ownership of the club. I think 85%. I think something.
I don't know the figure, but something like that.
Yeah. So we've never really known anything other than the home comforts of Delia Smith. But I can't remember. You did raise another question about Norwich, but I can't remember what it was. But yeah, that was something that I wanted to sort of mention, I suppose.
Yeah, because I just kind of bring up that it's just it's kind of unfortunate that, like, the experience of following a football club, I guess, in these days, with just how financially driven everything is, that it's such an identity based off what the owner is and what kind of culture has been put in place. Like, like, I can almost think about, like, certain clubs where it goes really well. You can think about Brighton with Tony Bloom. They kind of become characters and kind of become people who you look at from a kind of business sake. And it's a little depressing that, it should really just be thinking about what the product is on the pitch, what we're seeing.
Yeah. And I think, Delia did a lot of good for the club. There'll be a lot of people that disagree or perhaps deviate from that opinion. But I think as well is we needed to roll the dice. Sounds a bit kind of like we're gambled, but I don't think it is a gamble. because I think he's been. It's not like a lot of takeovers we see up and down the country where.
So sorry to interject, Jez. So we had the offer from Tony Fernandez, who bought QPR.
Yeah.
And QPR have been where they are for God knows how long. So Delia could have sold up to go with Tony Fernandez, but she didn't. So sorry, carry on, Jez.
And then the other thing I was going to say as well, I think you alluded earlier on to results. Had results gone differently this season for Sheffield Wednesday, you'd be higher. And actually, that's happened to Norwich quite a bit this season. We've given away some last-minute goals in games. Preston, recently at Carrow Road. Actually, the game against Blackburn, the last game as we record, we conceded in the last minute against 10 men to draw that 1-1.
Yeah.
That's 4 points straight away. And I think there was one more actually. I think Cardiff we let in the last minute to Derby as well. Yeah. Preston we lost, didn't we? There's all these games where. You're right. Had the dial gone the other way, we could be sitting with another 12 points here, and that's that you're right. That's the beauty and the almost like the beast, I suppose, of the championship.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, Morgan.
So I guess can you tell us a little bit more about your squad? Who's been your standout player so far this season, in your opinion, and maybe who needs to step up a little?
I guess it's interesting because I've kind of relegated the podcast now to doing kind of like half season and full season reviews. And I kind of like to sit down and kind of like tap out these very literary reviews of players. But sometimes it's funny because I don't really, there's a few of them I'm a bit like, what more can I say about X player that I haven't said in kind of 5 years of doing a podcast?
Yeah.
So some of those are kind of, one of those I'd definitely have to say stand out is Barry Bannon. Like he's just, I feel like everybody else seemingly looks on with kind of a little bit of, with envy. It's just been a huge stroke of fortune that we've had a player who's very much ensconced in the kind of top 10 Sheffield Wednesday appearances of all time in Barry Bannon. And he's 35 and he's still showing his quality. That would be one I'd put up there. The other one I'd say like is the other player that kind of goes alongside him in the engine room is Shay Charles, who we got on loan from Southampton, who, it's interesting when you kind of look and think about like a championship transfer perspective, you can play the loan market. And then I feel like we've just won the lottery. He's just looks a player who like Southampton back in the day spent £15 million on.
Yeah.
Just absolute quality, has the engine, a real blessing. And then the last one I just want to kind of look at, if I can think of 3 players to kind of tie it between, is Jedi Gossamer. He's a young winger that eventually we picked up a couple of seasons back, who had a bit of a youth career at PSG. And he's just a real game changer, pacey, just really magical with the ball at his feet, and someone who can kind of change the game pretty quickly.
Yeah,
and then did you ask about kind of players who need to step up in the final stretch?
Yeah.
That would be our entire defence. We've had Sheffield Wednesday do have a bit of a history of either getting a lot of players on the way to the retirement home and trying to get some juice out of their old legs, and also then just having like a terrible injury record. I think there's genuinely something up with the training ground and the facilities at Hillsborough. They train nearby. So basically there's just a lot of defenders. We lost Bambo Diaby, who's a very large unit we got from Preston North End. We sold him off and then seemingly never replaced him. And then January transfer window, everything we were screaming out for was at least one defender, possibly 2. Nobody came in. We've lost Deshaun Bernard to injury. We've lost Dominic Iorfa to injury. We've lost Akin Famewo to injury. Was Famewo a player who played for Norwich? Yeah. Famewo, a player who I saw, I think, one season, 19 minutes of in League One, and thought he looked very good, but that was all we saw before he got injured.
Yeah.
So a lot of players with a lot of injury niggles at the back, and we've kind of duct taped this defence back up. There's Michael Ahekwe, who's basically very much a third-tier player that we got from our local rivals, Rotherham.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of snagged him up alongside Michael Smith. He's very much an old-fashioned centre-back, but he's not particularly good. I'm sure you'll be seeing him maybe not be so good when Norwich play Wednesday coming up soon. And also Max Lowe, who's the left-back formerly of Derby and Sheffield United, who's kind of been shoved into the middle. So it's trying to get through there with hopefully maybe we can scrape a few clean sheets together between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean Barry Bannon. Let's start with him because he is a player. Very, you don't need me to tell you this. He's excellent on the ball, good at excellent at set pieces. A player that I would, or perhaps would have loved to have seen at Norwich at one point. A player that always seems to do very well against Norwich, well as other clubs as well. Just talk, because he's been at Sheffield Wednesday for quite a while now, hasn't he? But talk to us about a little bit about him in a little bit more depth. And did you sign him from Villa? Was that right?
We got him from Palace. I think so. Basically, it was kind of the era of, I think it was 2015. It was under the Carlos Carvajal reign.
Right.
The time of which going kind of Wednesday were kind of going for it under Detron Chansiri. So we did make some great acquisitions. But there's also a lot of stuff like David Jones and Alman Abdi who didn't really do a great deal. The time he came in, it was a bit like, why do we need another central midfield player? And then I saw him play, and I was like, okay, I get it now. Near the early days, he was kind of shunted out to the left a little bit, but just, absolute quality. I kind of wish, and I mean, it's difficult to say about a man who turned 35 at the end of last year.
Wow.
Kind of would like to see him do more of the kind of attacking work. I think some of the frustrations being, and especially the great thing with Shea Charles coming in, having someone come in and do the defensive midfield stuff, and having that mobility kind of helps push Bannon further up the pitch, because sometimes there's a bit of a habit or kind of force to kind of drop deep and pick up the ball and try and make something happen.
Yeah.
And I've seen him he's still good at like the kind of quarterback, deep lying center mid who can ping and spray balls out from your own half. But he's that quality and that talented. I really just want to keep seeing him further up the pitch, making things happen.
I mean, that's a bit like McLean for us, I'd say, Jez. Do you think?
Yeah, he's a different type of player, but you're right. He does that certain job, and certainly McLean's been someone that's been around the club long enough, hasn't he, to make himself into that kind of player, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, actually, Luke, here's a question for you. Out of our current, the Norwich, we're going to throw cat amongst the pigeons, or cat amongst the owls, if you will. That was a tenuous link, wasn't it? Who would you have from the current Norwich squad in the Wednesday squad?
Do you want to ask me another question while I buy some time and look at your squad?
Yeah, sure. What do you enjoy doing at the weekend?
What a great filler question. I play a lot of disc golf, which is kind of a really weird thing to say. I play a lot of frisbee golf, as they call it. We have a really good scene around here in Calgary. I'm actually planning to go to Austin, Texas, to go down to watch and kind of support a professional tournament there and play some stuff down there.
Oh, right.
So that's what I do outside of watching Wednesday and getting disappointed by them.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've ever seen disc golf is on the Nintendo Wii. There's one of the
Excellent.
One of the games on there where I mean, both of you will remember the Nintendo Wii with great fondness and memories of those times. Yeah. But one of the games on that international sports game was the disc golf, and those visions of if you can sort of think about this, of me in my living room with the device in my hand, flinging the device and trying to get the disc on my TV screen into this kind of mesh netting. But yeah, it's great. I mean, it must be so good to actually do as opposed to doing on a computer screen.
It's fun. I just, well, actually, the time I actually spent in Norwich was actually playing Ultimate Frisbee back in my
Really?
university days.
Well,
Yeah, I went to the University of East Anglia for a tournament,
Oh, right,
and
amazing.
I think we got kicked out of someone's old kind of flat. Basically, we shouldn't have had access there, and they called the police. So we
Yeah,
ended up picking up our bedding and ending hanging out on one of the halls of residence at UEA. So
yeah,
that's
they
my
run a
experience
pretty
in Norwich.
tight ship there. My friends got kicked out from playing a punk rock show in some hall's dormitory. I mean,
Excellent,
that's fair
excellent.
enough, though, right? So going back to that question then, Luke.
Now that I've taken a full look over your squad, I'm kind of taken with the idea of looking at someone like Callum Doyle. Like,
Okay.
how has he been playing for you?
yeah, he's had a good season. I think he's been, if not the best player in our team, one of. He's only on loan, obviously, from Man City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone that I'd love to get on a more sort of permanent deal. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But he's operated at both centre back and left back, and yeah, just has scored at least one goal, which was an excellent goal. But yeah, no, someone that's looks really strong and a really good prospect, and yeah, 100%, he'd do well for any team, I think.
I think you've got Cordoba as well. He's a centre back, and he's I think like he's someone who is someone we should have, like a centre back that we should have had years ago. He kind of feels like when he's got the ball at the back, and people think he's dithering around, but he's not. He's fully in control of it, and I think he's one of the few centre backs that I've seen recently when I'm like, okay, when he's got the ball at the back and there's a high press maybe, that I'm like, you know what? Like, I trust Cordoba to make the right choice. Whereas when we had Hanley, and no disrespect to him, I was always very nervous about him having having the ball at the back. Same with Gibson. I'm like, please don't make a mistake. But Cordoba for sure for me.
Yeah. So I suppose that leads nicely on to the next question. So several players have played for both Norwich and Sheffield Wednesday over the years. Who stands out most for you, and what are your memories of them? So this is almost like a bit of a shared legends question, this one.
Yeah.
It is, and it was interesting because I kind of looked over. I was like, who have played for both Wednesday and Norwich?
Mm.
And I have a lot of affection for Norwich from those '90s teams, and being a young boy of that age, looking over some of the squads of the Premier League at the time. Historically, I would say, I mean, I remember like my early experiences of going to see Wednesday. So my dad used to write for the program and get like free tickets.
Amazing.
And I remember, I have a clear memory of a couple of things. I have a clear memory, just off topic, of seeing what Wednesday fans have called the Waddle game, which was Chris Waddle absolutely bossing things against West Ham,
Yeah.
and we won 5-0 at home at Hillsborough. But the other thing that kind of comes to mind is seeing Wednesday beat Liverpool 3-1. And I remember being very close down and seeing Nigel Worthington clutter into the billboards near me. And again, he's a kind of a bit of a Wednesday left back legend of that time. So that would be one from kind of yesteryear. I'd be interested to hear what your kind of experiences, and I'll put this question to you after I'll answer, but the two most recent ones, one player who like we first started covering at the beginning of the podcast when we did it was Jacob Murphy.
Yeah.
We got Jacob Murphy on loan from Newcastle, and he was just absolutely quality.
Yeah.
Just a real bright spark in, I think that was like the COVID season, effectively, the 2019-2021.
Yeah.
Really great player. It's been really great to see him progress and do really well for Newcastle. A bit of a wistful tear to our eye, and a shame. One of those players who does so well on loan that you really hope you can get back, but it's probably not going to be the thing. The next player from that was kind of looking at the Carlos Carvajal era of like 2015, 16, 17, and that's Gary Hooper. Gary Hooper was
you had Gary Hooper, didn't you? Yeah.
Gary Hooper is such a quality striker. Just someone with and I think I kind of identify as being a bit of a short king myself at the ripe size of 5'8". These short players who are kind of not kind of pushing the 6 foot. I think Hooper's like around the 5'10" neck of the woods.
Yeah.
But they just seem to have this wonderful kind of low center of gravity.
Mm.
And just one of those players you want as like, you know, in kind of Pro Evolution Soccer terms, like an SS, you know, a shadow striker.
Mm.
He's one who's just going to link things up. Just an amazing finisher of the ball. He had a few kind of injury niggles at Wednesday, but like when we did get him, he was just quality. And just one of those players who was kind of part of just a really great strike force of that era.
Yeah.
And probably one of the best strikers I've seen at Wednesday in the last 10 years.
It's funny because we talked about Hooper a few weeks ago on one of the podcasts we do where it concentrates on Norwich, and I said that to Jez and the guest that like that we signed Hooper with you probably won't remember this, Luke, and you know it's fine if you didn't, but we signed Hooper alongside Ricky van Wolfswinkel and Johan Elmander and Leroy Fer under Chris Hughton under our last tilt in the Prem back in was it the 13-14 Jez 13-14 season,
something like that,
yeah, and I was like, well, this is good. Like we've got some, you know, Hooper was pulling up trees in the Scottish leagues with Celtic. I know it's the Scottish league, whatever, but I was like, you know, he's going to be a really good player for us. And he did. He tried his best when, you know, under a negative Chris Hughton. The tactics were very negative. It didn't really suit either Van Wolfswinkel or Hooper. And, you know, Hooper scored some good goals for us, and unfortunately we went down, but we kept Hooper in the squad, I think, for that tilt under Neil Adams and Alex Neil. And, you know, I always thought there was something about him that warranted more starts. And you know what? He to his credit, he never complained. He got his head down. He wasn't the sort of, you never read anything bad about him. And then I think we either loaned him or sold him to you guys, right?
I believe so. I think we got him for a princely sum of like 3 million.
Yeah, which is crazy. Because I think he just had so much to give, and I think in a way, and I don't want to be negative about my club, but there are some players that come to your club and sometimes it just doesn't work out and their career trajectory just goes down. And I think for me, that's what we kind of did with Hooper a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, on the flip side of that, Grant Holt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grant Holt was from for a period where I was kind of on a bit of a Wednesday sabbatical.
So I don't know why I laughed.
We've all been there, Luke.
I was more interested in music and the opposite sex, you know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But I think Holt was a bit of a weird one for Wednesday because I think he never quite. He was seen as a player of quality, but never quite hit those heights. And then did a lot more with yourselves than he did for Wednesday.
John Newsom.
Yeah.
John Newsom, yeah. Player I was aware of during the kind of late 90s. You know, a good player, but it seems like Wednesday going into the latter end of the 90s were kind of like downgrading. Yeah. And it felt disappointing, but like looking at now, I would probably love a player like John Newsom at Wednesday, you know.
Well, when you talk about defenders. Sorry, Morgan.
I was going to say Jordan Rhodes.
Yeah.
Jordan Rhodes. Oh, man. One of the many litany of Wednesday spending a lot of money or a lot of expectation on strikers and then not doing a great deal.
But he did he come from Wednesday to Norwich?
He was on loan from Wednesday, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he was really good for us.
Well,
like that 18-19 season.
I'll tell you, Jordan Rhodes was brought in as our striker, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Pookie decided that he was a striker.
Yeah.
Whatever we brought him in as, and I think Jordan Rhodes then sort of became his kind of player to bring on within the next, the last 10 minutes to kind of mix it up a little bit, that type of player.
You can't deny that he was, I'd say, instrumental to getting us across the line that season.
I agree. Yeah, because if we didn't have that sort of player, we certainly wouldn't have beat Millwall.
No.
And there's 2 or 3 other games which obviously I can't remember now, but certainly you're right. He certainly, played a big part there. Chris Woods.
Chris Woods, interesting one. Like for Wednesday, one of my formative, heartbreaking traumas of supporting Sheffield Wednesday is the 92-93 FA Cup final, or at least both cup finals, losing to Arsenal. And again, that's not the continental, sexy Arsene Wenger Arsenal. That's the 1-0 bunch of Cockney wide boys Arsenal. With, Steve Morrow scoring the winner against Wednesday League Cup final and then them dropping him, and I think he broke his arm. Yeah. Things like that, Ray Parlour,
George Graham.
All those, George Graham,
yeah.
George Graham, Ray Parlour, Merson, all those characters who've had a number of drinking and womanizing issues and gambling issues. Great stuff. Chris Woods palmed one of I think it's the FA Cup final winner into the roof of his net. So, a good goalkeeper, but maybe kind of eclipsed by Wednesday in that time by Kevin Pressman, who I know is a bit of a comedy figure because he was a bit of a chunky lad during his days. But he was a great goalkeeper in his day, Kevin Pressman, and Woods was decent as well, but maybe a little bit mired in my recollection.
I think, Kevin Pressman, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's a game that sometimes me and my mates play where we'll just start quoting random 90s footballers to each other.
I love that.
Kevin Pressman is one that comes up quite a lot.
It's like the football club top trumps where you can see if you can try and name the most random signing that your club's made, but that barely ever saw a game. So my favourite for Norwich is a player called Ignacy Miguel.
Yeah.
I love him. He's my go-to top trump.
Yeah.
So
talking to top trumps, John Oxemabor.
Oh yes,
John Oxemabor, yeah. I remember winning a Coca-Cola fan experience and going to the training ground in 2011, and I have a picture of me and my co-host Rich with John Oxemabor.
No, you don't.
I do indeed. I'll send it you both later.
Yeah.
I know we had 5 questions, but I'm really keen. My next question to you is going to be: explain to me the Steel City rivalry.
Yeah.
Obviously this is a very Sheffield Wednesday perspective, but there seems to be a weird kind of thing of being the first club in your city and then another club being created who are called United, which doesn't really make any sense because they weren't united from anything. And, everyone talks about Bramall Lane, but historically that was where Wednesday played before they evacuated and went to Hillsborough. So it has an identity with Sheffield United, but there's a lot of, what I'm trying to get at here, there's a lot of little brother, small man syndrome. There's a very big chip on the shoulder with Sheffield United fans.
You think?
So it's a weird thing, yeah. So there's a weird thing where they want to be the top dog, but they still want to kind of be downtrodden.
Yeah.
And I think every club has had its fair share of misery, and poor fortune, but it seems to be amplified with Sheffield United.
Yeah, they have a rivalry with us, actually. I think Jez, was it since the Battle of Bramall Lane?
Yeah, well, since Chris Wilder thought that it was funny to come out and dig us out for arriving late, yeah, even though it was beyond our control. I think that was when it all kicked off, wasn't it?
Yeah, we won 1-0 and they didn't like that. And I think some of their fans threw glass bottles at our goalkeeper.
Excellent.
And,
yeah, that kind of tracks. Chris Wilder is not the most graceful figure in English football, I will say.
No, I have to agree. I think for me, this is probably not a point that you thought I was going to make, but the kits, obviously one's red and white, one's blue and white, but every single game there seems to be no kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? they don't seem to care. So, you know, the referees will pick those kits, even though there might be a bit of a clash with the white bits in them. Does that make sense? I think it's quite important that both clubs are wearing the you know, their home kits in that game, even though there might be a bit of a clash.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's important that that's something still kept going.
Because I don't think I've ever seen a you know, Sheffield derby, and it's similar to Newcastle Sunderland in some ways. They don't tend to wear their away kit either in those games, even though again it's quite close. But you know, there's no consideration, or there doesn't seem to be any consideration from the referees or whoever picks those kits to kind of have an away kit. And I think, I don't know whether whether I'm making my point clear enough, really, but it seems, you know, I think that's quite a good thing, really.
It is, and no, I completely agree. It's a really important, interesting thing. I've never really thought about that, honestly.
But you both got black shorts, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I think there's some eras where, like, certain teams have gone white shorts, but it seems like we kind of typically go back to the black shorts. That seems to be the thing.
And I wonder whether there is a particular reason for that, or whether that's just what they chose at the time and it stuck. I don't know.
Can I ask you guys a question, talking about kits? Like, are there any kind of, like, it's obviously Norwich, yellow, the Canaries.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of hallmarks that you really want to see when you kind of see that new Norwich City kit announced for next season?
Oh, I don't know. Because, I mean, what can you do? It's yellow.
I'm waiting for him to do the retro Asics kit. Is what I'm waiting for him to do. The diagonal green lines across the top of the shirt. So yeah, that's what I'm waiting for him to do. But I'm with Morgan. I think what can you? I suppose it's the same as any team, though. You know, they don't unless your name's Cardiff City and you decide to completely change the.
Yeah.
Then you know, I mean, to be fair, Luton Town did that one season. They had their white shirts as the home kit, and then there was a bit of an uproar about that, so they went back to the orange. But I think you know, we're quite traditionalists in that. I don't think they'd ever move away from that. We did one season, Luke, go a full yellow kit and a full green kit, so they dropped the green shorts. But that caused a bit of a shall we say, a stir.
But that is the biggest no-no, effectively, in a Norwich shirt.
You just look like a big jelly baby, yellow jelly baby.
Or banana and an avocado, yeah.
I don't know if you know much about our history, Luke, but we originally played in the god awful colours of blue and white.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We were called the Citizens.
Yeah.
So
wonderful.
Yeah. So then our chairman at the time was a collector of like canaries, because canaries were cool to have as a pet or something. And he was like, "Oh, we're going to just change the kit to." He did a Vincent Tan, effectively, Jez. So we've been victim of that, really.
Yeah. But it's stuck.
And no one complained, and I'm not going to complain now because I much prefer it than. I don't mean like blue and white stripes, Luke. That's fine, but blue and white, nah, not for me, for obvious reasons.
Well, I remember when Wednesday did, they did like a kind of, I think it was like the 150th year, so it was 2017. So for the kit that year, they did like blue with white pinstripes.
Yeah, remember it.
And that was kind of like a callback to a certain era. And then I remember chatting to my dad about it, and he's like, "Yeah, they did that back in the day, but no one actually really enjoyed it."
You know what I want to ask you about though? The badge in the 90s was so cool.
Yeah.
That owl was so cool. And then you changed it back to an old badge, right?
Yep.
It looks like a child's drawing. No Sheffield Wednesday fans are ever going to listen to this podcast ever again.
But the owl does look demented.
I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you. I think there's like genuinely a love for, you know, the classic one. I think it was like the person who designed it made it like perfectly with a protractor. So like it has that kind of curvature.
Yeah.
You know, you can see in like the kind of old school owl, like 70s talons. But everybody loves that logo. And hopefully it will come back at some point.
I hope so.
The Latin underneath is what? Concilio. I'm looking at it now. Concilio et animis. What does that mean?
Is it wisdom and courage, I believe?
Yeah. Because I think Blackburn, who we played last week,
is absolutely perfect there, by the way.
Thank you. Blackburn, who we had last week, also got Latin, which I think was a little bit, which is obviously work of art, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I don't know where I'm going with this.
Speakers.
So Norwich have never had a Latin kind of slogan.
No, do you know what? Sorry, Morgan, carry on.
I think it'd be like, "Are ye all right, buh?"
Beautiful.
The logo I was going to say is one of the only ones certainly in the English Football League that doesn't have any initials, club name or anything on it. It's just got the birds, the castle, and the lion.
Is that true?
Yeah. If you look at any other logo in any other, there may be one or two. I think Wolves is an example of this as well.
Yeah, Wolves is just a head, isn't it?
Yeah. But there's many of the other clubs, and people will be frantically going into the comments that I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any other club. If there may be one or two, but very few clubs don't have the club logo or club name or club initials on it.
Yeah. Kind of like that minimal approach, though.
Yeah. I think it's time for the next question, Morgan.
So, obviously, looking ahead at the game, how do you see Wednesday matching up against Norwich? Where do you think the game could potentially be won or lost?
Again, thank you so much, lads, for having me on your podcast. And again, the classic precursor of any of these conversations is I don't mean to cause any disrespect. Just because I see enough Sheffield Wednesday, I see a lot of our own problems coming from ourselves. Like, obviously, there are a lot of very competent, very decent teams with a lot of talent and quality. I just see very much a Sheffield Wednesday kind of porous defense, and maybe kind of going forward in a kind of gung-ho attacking manner, and then not being able to kind of capitalize on those moments.
Okay.
Seem to kind of feel very close with the last couple of games, especially like thinking about Burnley, which I went back and watched the highlight. I missed that game. I was busy at the time, but a lot of hallmarks of missed opportunities through Stuart Armstrong, through Josh Windass. Oh, Josh Windass, he's an infuriating kind of figure for me. So I see that. Yeah, I don't know. What do your styles think about the game? Okay.
Well, I think we owe you one because you did it.
And I also remember Wednesday were very much a bogey team for Norwich during a spell of like 13 games, I think it was.
Yeah.
Like, just we always seem to have Norwich's number, and it's one of those weird things that like just could never really kind of figure out why. It just seemed to be whatever magic of the moment during that time. I remember Jermaine Johnson scoring against yourselves for a winner. And I feel like Wednesday have had teams like that. Like, I feel like Derby, for the longest time, we could just never beat Derby, honestly.
I'd take a draw now. Our Tuesday night games, other than Plymouth, where we absolutely destroyed them, I don't think they've been that good this season. Other than the Plymouth game, I can't remember us doing that well on a Tuesday night. So I'll take a draw now. I'd go your score. So I think 1-1 for me.
Is that what you'd be happy with, or that's what your prediction is?
No, I mean, obviously I'd be happy if Norwich absolutely destroyed them, but no, I would. That's my prediction. I think draw.
I think that we are such an inconsistent beast, and we have actually McLean's back. So no, I'm going to go for a Norwich win. I think it's going to be a relatively, if you're saying your defence is porous, and you're going to commit men to an attack, I think that's exactly what we would like. That plays right into our hands. And it's at Carrow Road, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think there's been very few teams this season have beaten us at Carrow Road, and if you're going to not park the bus, then you're going to walk right into play right into our hands. So it could either be really tight and boring and like a 1-0 or 2-1 win, or you're going to get walloped. So I don't know. I'm probably going to go for a Norwich win, and I'm not going to do my usual 10-0. I have this thing about saying 10-0 because it's become a thing. I'd probably say three. I want to say 3-0.
I would say, from my perspective, I think yourselves, I think you're probably going to win like 2-1. Probably. I think how it's kind of going to pan out is you will score in the first half, and then Wednesday will finally wake up and decide to try and attack and probably give you a few kittens in the second half. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I did hesitate when you sent me that question over because I was a bit like, Wednesday have quite a decent away record, or maybe it's quite decent in comparison with not being so great at home this season, honestly. A lot of the entertainments come on the road. How is the home record for Norwich this season?
Pretty good. We've not lost that many. Bristol and Preston, right, Jez?
Yeah, and then before the Bristol game, we hadn't lost in a calendar year at home.
So that's why I'm saying I think it's going to be a bit harder than you think, Luke. But I we'll see. It depends. If you've got a good away, it could be a really good game. If you've got a good away record, we've got a good home record. It's no reason why it couldn't be an entertaining fixture.
I think Wednesday always kind of look quite entertaining under Roll. You know, just the counter-attacking kind of gung-ho kind of attacking nature. But very much from a Wednesday perspective, porous defence.
Yeah.
We leave ourselves open. We don't have a lot of quality in centre-back. The keeper we have on loan, James Beadle from Brighton, is fantastic.
Beadle's about.
Beadle is indeed about, yeah. And largely looking quite good, though I think he's having a bit of an odd patch right now. I'm wondering how much blame to put on this horrendous mullet that he's carrying at the moment.
Well, that's what everyone's wearing now that is younger than 30.
It's one of those mullets where it doesn't have any hair on the side of their head.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I know.
Yeah, okay. He looks like some kind of Spanish goalkeeper signed by Chelsea, who I don't know.
I think stories, if I may.
Please do, yeah.
Story one. I don't know why I needed to number them. I should have just gone into it. So I went to one game during lockdown, COVID, which we were allowed to go to because I don't know if you remember, but they opened it up to 2,000 fans was the maximum amount of fans in the game. So you literally you were sat there and there was about 10 seats either side of the next person. That was Sheffield Wednesday. And we went 1-0 down and Michael McGovern was playing, I think, at the time. And Callum Patterson, I think he's still with you, isn't he? Scored. But I think we ended up winning the game 2 or 3-1 at the time. But so that was quite surreal. It felt like a bit of a pre-season game because of the fact that there's only one stand open and it was very surreal. But second of all is I've been to Hillsborough twice. And for me, it's one of the best atmospheres, particularly at the start of the game where you do the Hi-O Silver Lining song, and obviously everyone sings Sheffield Wednesday at the opportune moment. But I don't think one of the most intimidating things I've ever felt as a Norwich fan is when everyone shouts Sheffield Wednesday at you. About 40,000 people shout Sheffield Wednesday at you. But great city, great club, great stadium. Talk to us a little bit about, and this is so obvious, but talk to us a little bit about what it means growing up in Sheffield and Hillsborough itself.
It's one of those places that I'm getting. You can hear the emotion kind of hitting the back of my throat right now. It's known as like being like one of the leftover kind of great kind of stadiums. We're obviously moving towards newer, well more built, well more kind of utilized stadiums, but it's a magical thing, Hillsborough.
Yeah.
And Gary Megson, who obviously Wednesday and Norwich connection, would often, when he was taking over, when he was the manager of the club, would take players up to the top of the Kop and just have them like sit there and it is an interesting place. It has a vibe that I don't think a lot of places have in terms of football stadiums.
I agree. I certainly feel there's a lot of history, and sometimes, I don't think we need to go into it too much, but obviously we all know what happened 25, 30 years ago at that ground. Yeah. And I think, I think sometimes I would never like to use the word pilgrimage, but I think there's a certain pilgrimage factor of away fans that want to go to Hillsborough and experience not only the atmosphere, but almost like pay their respects, I suppose, to what happened that day. Is that a fair comment?
I think so. It's a weird thing to think about, thinking that it's your club and it's your ground and it's famous for a very weird reason.
Yeah.
I agree. So it's a very difficult thing to kind of saddle and think about.
Yeah.
It is a difficult one to talk about. But yeah,
I think, sorry to interrupt, I think, we'd never want to kind of feel like we were kind of sensationalizing it or belittling what I'm talking about it because I think it's a really important thing to talk about and a really important thing to think that those people that day went to go and watch a football match and never came home, and through no fault of their own really, and it's such a unique, not only a unique city because of everything that you've described, but also a very unique football stadium. And I certainly felt a tremendous sense of I can't think of the right word, and but I'm hoping that I'm portraying it in a way that it befits what the situation, if that makes sense.
No, I get it. I think a lot of, like the same as yourselves, I think there's a lot of kind of odd, respect for Hillsborough, but kind of like carrying both things. It's an awkward thing to carry both, like the respect of like a very nice old kind of football stadium with a great vibe with, the reality of what happened historically.
Yeah. But on the flip side, I suppose, no, not even on the flip side, that's the wrong turn of phrase. But, ironically, I suppose Norwich were actually playing in the other semi-final of that. I don't know if it was the same day, but it was certainly.
Oh, interesting.
So
I also remember in terms of Wednesday and kind of Norwich kind of links, I've got a quick story. I remember being there, I think one year when Wednesday just kind of staved off relegation. And I think they were playing Norwich the last day of the season. It was a pretty comfortable win for Wednesday. But it was actually Dion Dublin's last game.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh.
Yeah.
You were there, and he talks a lot about the reception he got from all sides of the stadium.
I actually think Darren Huckabee might have been his last game as well.
Well, that was good because I didn't like Darren Huckabee at the time. Seemed a bit of a bogey player against us always.
Great player, great person, but he's you're right. I think there's a lot of clubs that he kind of because of his natural ability and natural talent, probably people didn't like him because he scored a lot of goals or at least assisted a lot of goals. Great player, yeah. But no, Luke, it's been.
Hang on, Jez.
No, we're coming to that. Don't worry. Before we got there, I just really wanted to reiterate how brilliant, emotional, and just, I'm going to say use the word brilliant again. It's been a brilliant podcast and really great to hear your side of things from a Sheffield Wednesday point of view.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to come on, and great to chat about Wednesday and a little bit about Norwich City with you both. So thank you.
I do need to prepare you for the next segment before we finish. I'm going to pass you over to Morgan for it anyway. Morgan, all yours. The stage is yours, sir.
I always say this, but Luke, I hope you're sitting down.
I am.
Good. So every week you get a random question of the week thrown into the mixer. You don't know what's coming. So okay. Morgan's random question of the week. So, yes, that was quite good, that one.
That was good, yeah. It's the best one yet.
Do you ever think, Morgan, about recording it and then putting some auto-tune through it, maybe?
I like your ambition, Luke. But we've teased the idea of some AI, and Jez came up with an actual an AI theme, which I really enjoyed, but we've not used it, so I've got to carry on singing it. I think it's my punishment. So
Hmm.
in 1870, in the American magazine Our Young Folks, a famous poem by Edward Lear was released called The Owl and the Pussycat. Yeah. So
Yes,
so the
that's
Owl
true.
and the Pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a £5 note. So given you're an owl and you've got your
Mm,
pussycat,
mm.
what would what would you take to sea in your beautiful pea green boat?
I would, I would need, I would probably need, knowing that I have a dear cat myself named Leonard, I'd probably need something that contains a catnip toy to keep him entertained.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Anything else? Or is
And
that it? That's quite a journey without anything else.
well, I imagine that there's a kind of, it's the kind of Desert Island Discs thing. I imagine you've provided, you know, the history of English literature and enough food to keep me on that way as well.
Yeah. Nothing else. Gin.
Yeah, I'll take some gin. Sure, that sounds good. And anything you would both recommend that I take with me? Because clearly
You're not.
I'm not prepared for the power of Morgan's random question of the week. You know.
Oh, don't worry, I'm not either. Although I thought about this for about a day, I was like, what can I? Oh, the Owl and the Pussycat popped into my head.
Brilliant.
Like at the end of Ghostbusters when Ray thinks of the Marshmallow Man. Um, I recommend taking waterproof clothing because the sea can be rough.
Yeah, shout out to waterproof socks. I'm a big fan of those.
Can you get those?
You can, they're fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, Jez.
What would I take to sea with me?
Well, no. What advice would you give to Luke? It's not about you. Unless you want to go on. Unless you want to go with him.
Can of Dr Pepper,
Good call.
a Yorkie bar,
Very good call.
because obviously Yorkshire. There you go. That's the link.
Yeah, like that.
And I would probably take a collection of Norwich City programmes.
They're going to get wet though.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they're glossy, aren't they? So you can dry them out in the sun.
Mm, mm.
A nice pair of swim shorts, assuming the weather's nice, a nice pair of swim shorts. Not Speedos, swim shorts.
Yeah, but canary smugglers.
Yeah. I think that's about it, really. What about you?
I've said some waterproof clothing
Oh, right. Okay.
and a book. Oh, you've already got your books, haven't you?
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Yeah.
Luke, what about a sombrero or some kind of hat to keep the sun off your head? Because you're not used to the sun in the Midlands or the North, are you?
No, not really, and not even in Canada as well. So I've spent an entirety of my existence avoiding it. Clearly, just being pasty, basically.
It's been very sunny in the UK this week. My eyelids have got burnt.
Oh, brilliant, Morgan! You're phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I don't know why I asked you to be the co-host. It's well, I do actually for the random question of the week. Clearly, Luke, before you depart, is there anyone you want to say hello to, give a shout out to, plug your podcast?
Just anybody, any of my lovely, sweet, well-intentioned friends and family who give a time to listen to me stupidly go on about Sheffield Wednesday, as always. My podcast, Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. We are now occasional podcasters since we've sprained our podcasting ACLs. And yeah, we'll eventually get around to doing season review at the end of it. Hopefully Wednesday can stay up. We'll get the next 6 points, and we can get to that magic number of safety points.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're going down, but I think I'm already looking forward to my trip to Hillsborough next season. Do you get back to see the games much, or is it,
I try and get back every kind of couple of years, and so I am due a return, I would say. Great. Last time was a League Cup game against Mansfield, and it didn't quite meet the needs, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Well, when you're back, give us a shout, and we can hopefully meet up.
Sounds good, guys. Well, maybe I'll come back, and then Wednesday will be entertaining Norwich City at Hillsborough. So there we go.
That'll be great.
Okay. Well, thanks for everyone else for listening. You can follow us on all of our social channels, Facebook, Instagram and X. You can also listen to the show on YouTube. I've been Jez Davies.
I've been Morgan Hewitt.
That's it for this episode of Beyond the Barkley. Thanks so much for listening. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave a review if you enjoyed the show. You can also catch all our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've got any questions, stories, or topics you'd like us to cover, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, on the ball, City.